Over the past 2 weeks, the already great Western Conference has gotten much greater in the NBA following the Rockets trading for Corey Brewer and also signing Josh Smith, as well as Rajon Rondo traded to the Dallas Mavericks in a blockbuster deal. Both teams have improved their squads, but I'm not sure they have climbed any higher on the Western Conference hierarchy. I'll tell you why next. Welcome back to the Best Damn Sports Blog. Back again with another NBA podcast. Here to talk the recent NBA transactions, which is always fun to talk. And I always love when it happens, when the NBA gets stirred up after the season, because even though LeBron returned to Cleveland, this season has been somewhat quiet. It's not really been a headline-grabbing season. I must say, it's been sort of a quiet season compared to how it used to be with LeBron, D-Wade, and Chris Bosh in Miami. It seemed like it was a story every week. But we have some moves, which are Josh Smith, who got cut by Stan Van Gundy in the Detroit Pistons, which was a surprise to me. I mean, he's played pathetic this year for Detroit. But that's beside the point. And they also added Corey Brewer via trade. And he's going to add another athletic wing to their team who can also play defense. And another backup for James Harden to go along with Jason Terry, who can play the 2 guard or the 1. So this Houston Rockets team is just getting deeper. Deeper and deeper. And although they're getting deeper, I still think they're a point guard away from real contention. James Harden has been lights out this season. He really has. To me, he's up there with Steph Curry right now as for front runners for the MVP. I feel like it's still a little too early to even say either or. They're both having great seasons along with Anthony Davis. I favor them two above Anthony Davis because, the Pelicans are right around 500, and while Golden State and Houston both have a win percentage of 750 or more. Now, this young Houston team, I like a lot. I like what they're building in Houston. But it's just hard for me to buy into a team that is led by James Harden and Dwight Howard. And if your third player is Josh Smith, third best player, I mean, come on. It's hard to believe in that. It's hard to buy into that. I mean, Josh Smith, this season, he has looked terrible. In his first game with the Rockets, he played good, though. He was 9 of 21 from the field. That's funny. He took 21 shots in his Rockets debut. 21 shots, but at least he made 9 of them. And he finished with 21 points. So he had a good outing in his first Rockets outing. But I want you to hear his stats from the Pistons this season. In 32 minutes a game, he shot 39% from the field, 24% from 3, 46% from the free throw line. Those numbers are terrible. And if you can see his shot chart, all the red in his shot chart, it's astonishing that an NBA player could shoot so bad. But even with that said, I think he will improve the Rockets. Because with the style of play that they like to play, that up and down pace, I think we will see the athletic Josh Smith return from his Atlanta days. In Detroit, they were playing him as small forward, so he was out on the wing, taking a lot of bad jumpers, a lot of bad three-pointers. Like I said, 24% this season from 3 is terrible. It's horrendous. 39% from the field. I mean, that speaks for itself. And then the 46% from the free throw line, that's just pathetic. That's just pathetic. But like I said, he will improve this Rockets team. So this is not to bash Josh Smith. I'm just speaking on those statistics. They are bad. But in Houston, if he can play like he did in the first game, which is around the basket, like I said, driving to the hole a lot more, not taking stupid jump shots, even if they're uncontested, not as much because he cannot shoot. They have James Harden. They have Dwight Howard. He can play off of those players. Him and Dwight Howard have a relationship from AAU days in high school. So I think this is a good fit for Josh Smith, and I hope he does well. In the addition of Corey Brewer via trade, I think it's a good addition, a good backup to James Harden to have, because he can also play defense, although Corey Brewer likes to take a lot of risks. I still think what he will bring to this Rockets team will also be an improvement. I see this Rockets team now as a middle-of-the-pack team in the Western Conference following these moves. Prior, I seen them around 7th, 8th, first-round exit. I can see this Rockets team winning in the first round now. This Rockets team is deep, and they have one of the best starting fives in the league. That's just factual. A starting five with Harden, Beverly, Ariza, Josh Smith, and Dwight Howard. That's a potent five. But for some reason, I cannot see this team in the same light that I look at the Golden State Warriors, the San Antonio Spurs, Oklahoma City Thunder, or even Memphis Grizzlies. I just can't see it. For me to believe that this team is better than any of those 4 teams, I will have to see this team beat them in a 7-game series. And that's just how I feel about the Rockets. I got to see it to believe it, that they're a part of the best in the Western Conference. On December 19th, the Dallas Mavericks acquired Rajon Rondo in a blockbuster deal. And I think that deal cemented them having the best starting five in the NBA. Parsons at the 3, Rondo at the 1, Monte at the 2, Chandler at the 5, and Dirk at the 4. That starting five is as potent of a starting five as it gets from 1 to 5. All effective players at their position. But the problem I have with this Rondo trade is what Dallas gave up. Brandon Wright, he's starting to look like a promising young prospect. Even though he's not that young anymore, he's starting to come into his own. And Jay Crowder, I won't say he's a good player that's going to become something special, but he's a quality player off the bench that can play the 3 or the 4, and he hit threes for them. And I think he's a pretty good defender as well. So, to give those two up along with Jameer Nelson and first-round pick, or draft picks, I should say, I think it's a tad bit much for Rajon Rondo. And even though they have Rajon Rondo, I do not believe this team is a part of the elite teams in the Western Conference. I have 4 teams ahead of them at the least. Memphis, OKC, San Antonio, and the Golden State Warriors. I feel like all 4 of those teams are still better. Because if you look at Dallas' bench, they have no one. They don't have much at all. Aminu, JJ Barea, and that's pretty much about it. You got Charlie Villanueva, Devin Harris. I mean, these are good players, but the lack of depth that they now have on their bench, I don't think was worth this trade. And there are stats to back up that before this trade, their offense was A-okay because they were the #1 efficient offense in the NBA prior to this Rondo trade. And although Rondo has played in only 4 games, the Mavericks are 2-2 in those 4 games. And their offensive stats have taken a hit in those 4 games. Even their defensive stats, and you know there is this perception that Rondo is a great defender. I wouldn't say he's great. He's a good on-ball defender. But you know there's a perception that he's great. But listen to these stats. Prior to trading for Rondo, Dallas had an offensive rating of 113.6 and a defensive rating of 105.1. With Rondo, their offensive rating has fell to 104 from 113, and their defensive rating has fell to 102.9, which is somewhat of an improvement on defense, but not much. But Rondo, like I said, has somewhat hurt their offense. Their offensive rating is down almost 10 points. Now, I'm not the biggest Rondo guy. I feel like he's somewhat overrated. And although I think Rick Carlisle will figure this out because he's a great coach. And this Dallas team will improve. But like I said, I don't see them finishing above any of those four teams or beating any of those four teams in the playoffs. Rondo is just overrated. He cannot score. And in today's NBA, I think it's more valuable to have a scoring guard who can also pass than it is to have a passing guard who is an offensive liability. And that's not to take away from Rondo because he's a great player. But his offensive stats are terrible. In Boston, he averaged 8.3 points this season. He shot 33% from the free throw line, 25% from long range, and 40.5% from the field. He is an inefficient scorer. He's a great passer. He averaged 10.8 assists. And he also averaged 7.3 rebounds in Boston this season. So that's great. That's like I said, Rondo is a great player. But in today's NBA, he's not worth what Dallas traded away. And I think a guard such as a Goran Dragic would have helped this Dallas squad a lot more. A guard who can score and also dish the ball when it's needed. But don't get me wrong. Having Rondo as their starting point guard, like I said in the beginning, cements them as the best starting five in my opinion. They are improved from having Jameer Nelson in the starting lineup with Rajon Rondo there instead. But to give away Brandon Wright, I think will hurt them the most, and Jay Crowder, because their bench is now weakened. And come playoffs, you're going to need a good bench. If they don't make any more signings or trades, moves, I see Dallas going out second round at best for them. First round is a possibility. This team is going to be good, but it's not going to be good enough to compete with a Memphis, a OKC, a San Antonio, or a Golden State Warriors. I see all four of those teams at the least beating them. And you still got Portland and you got Houston. Those are two teams that could possibly beat them. Rondo does not change fate. He's a good player, a great player in a sense, but he's overrated and Dallas overvalued him. There are literally at least 11 point guards I would rather have than Rajon Rondo in the NBA. Russell Westbrook, CP3, Steph Curry, Derrick Rose, Kyrie Irving, John Wall, Dame Lillard, Tony Parker. Those are the givens. Those 8 are the givens, and I even have 4 more. Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, Jeff Teague, and Ty Lawson. Those are 12 point guards I would rather have. I know some might question Jeff Teague and Ty Lawson, but I tell you, go look at their stats, especially Jeff Teague. I believe he's taken a step forward this year. Look at the Atlanta Hawks. They're actually a good team in the Eastern Conference. Now, I don't think they're legit, especially going up against the Western Conference. But all of those point guards, and even including Goran Dragic, I feel like all these point guard skill set is much more valuable than the Rajon Rondo who can get you 11 assists, maybe 10 rebounds, but only 8 points on 40% shooting. In this NBA, it's all about efficiency. And I'm not a big stat guy, but I believe in today's NBA, scoring guards are more valuable than a traditional point guard, especially one that is not good at scoring and is an inefficient scorer. Rajon Rondo is an addition for the Dallas Mavericks, but at the expense of Brandon Wright, Jay Crowder, and draft picks, I think they overvalued Rajon Rondo, and they will pay for it in the end.